All right, so team one of this episode is the Montreal Canadiens. Last year's standings, 30 wins, 36 losses. We don't talk about overtime losses on this podcast. Last year's power play ranking 27th, not very good. 17.5% conversion rate. Who's in and who's out for this year? Well, the big name is Patrick Laine coming in. And we lose, obviously, Harris, who went the other way in the trade, and Kovacevic, who also left, and we traded him away. And I'm saying we as if it's us, but
what you just finished saying.
Yeah. But anyways, okay, little things you're still going to see. But player tiers. So we don't have anybody in the 91-plus points for this team.
Oh, come on.
We don't think that anybody on this team right now is that type of producing player. We do have somebody, however, who could possibly reach the 80 to 90 point tier. So we'll start off the show with Nick Suzuki. Junior, since you're actually paying attention and Vince is not, I'll start with you. What do you think about Nick Suzuki?
Nick Suzuki might be one of the most debated players on the Montreal Canadiens from everyone around the league. I don't think anyone, and I think it's a stigma most two-way centers have, that we can't just expect them to be point per game players because they're two-way centers. But the reality is this kid, he's phenomenal. And he's just getting started. Now, do I think he's going to be a 90-point guy? No. Look, he's coming off a 77-point season in 82 games. Fun fact, 3 consecutive years, 82 games played, 82 games played, 82 games played.
It is definitely a talent to stay healthy that long.
Definitely, especially on a team that's been destroyed with injuries over those years, right? Yeah. He's the only one who managed to stay healthy. So look, he went from 61 points in 2021-2022. He improved that to 66 2022-2023, and in 2023-2024 last season, 77 points in 82 games, 33 goals. I see Nick Suzuki between that range of 75 to 85 in and out over every season, depending on how many games he plays. I think 85 could be his ceiling. I don't expect to see more than that from him. But man, I love hockey IQ, and he has probably the best on the team. He's hands down the best hockey IQ on this team.
Vince.
Yeah, he'll have. I agree with you, meaning that he'll be in that 85-point range every year. I think he'll have 1 or 2 years where he'll move up into that over 90.
I hope.
Once his wingers start to develop properly. I feel this year, if Caulfield could stay healthy, Slafkovsky, they look like they had a great chemistry at the end of the year, especially Slafkovsky racking up all those points in the the later end of the year, matched with Suzuki and Caulfield. So I feel he'll do well. I feel if the power play can go from 27 to, I don't know, maybe 15th.
That's a big jump.
Or even 27 to 20th. Those points are going to come to Suzuki because we don't have a defensive quarterback, even though some people say Lane Hudson is. He's not right now. Okay, Suzuki plays that role. The puck is on his side. When it's not on his side, goalie doesn't know whether he's going to shoot it or try to pass it across to Caulfield. Doc being healthy, which we'll talk about later. But Suzuki, listen, 85 points. I think he's an 85-point player. He'll have those seasons once Montreal is in that peak where they're running on full gears and everybody's healthy and the team is in 2-3 years, he might have those 1 or 2 seasons where he'll hit the over 90. But or else he's going to be a consistent 85 points.
So I don't think he's going to be 85 points necessarily this year coming. So I don't know if you guys are alluding to that's what your prediction is. I was saying more point
82.
per game.
Yeah, 82, 80.
80 to 82 this year. And he's going to be turning 26 during this season. So he's really entering his prime now, right? 26, 27, 28, 29. That's where we consider the primes of a player's career. So if he is going to hit that 85, it might be in the next few years. I still say about 82 this year. The power play does run through him, which is important right now because he's the primary person. He's not the shooter necessarily, but he could do it. He's not the guy on the point, but he's constantly the one that's doing the plays in the middle.
He decides where that puck is going.
He does.
He often gets primary assists on the power play.
Yeah, that's right.
And
That's right. And the power play should improve. We'll talk about Laney after. But if Laney is there, the power play should improve a bit. So
New coach also.
we'll see. A new coach, Burrows, was the power play coach, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Last year, he's gone. So maybe there's going to be a new power play coach coming in to try to help out this team.
And look, if Lane Hudson does start the year with the Canadiens, it does add an element to the power play that will improve it because he has a skill set that Matheson or anybody else on this team doesn't have.
Okay.
And that takes attention away from Suzuki, from Caulfield, from Laine. So we spoke about it, right? When you have a threat, only one threat, it's easy to defend. Now, the second you start showing different threats, it opens the door for a lot of people.
Very good captain for this market. The guy is stoic. He doesn't seem to get rattled by anything. He's not a rah-rah guy, and he's not a
Plays well under
shrinking
pressure.
violet either, right?
Plays well
So,
under pressure.
Plays well under pressure. I think Nick Suzuki is perfect in his role right now. He is a legitimate number one center, and I think Dom Lucian finally said that he is a number one center, which his early prognostications were saying that he's getting paid as a number one, but he isn't, right? So he's finally on board with Nick Suzuki as a number one center. I think we could lay that to rest for now.
Yeah.
But he's not a 90-point player. We all agree on that. He's not going to be necessarily a 91-plus point player. So we have him in Tier 2. Tier 3, we have a line mate of his, which is Cole Caulfield. Now, Cole Caulfield is coming off a shoulder surgery, which kind of slowed his season, it seems. And he was a little bit more defensively responsible than he's been in previous seasons. But he didn't put as many points as we were hoping. And is he going to get to that potential? That goal-scoring potential? Or like, what do you expect? Forget what the people expect. What do you expect?
If Caulfield can give you between 35 and 40 goals a year, I think that's his potential.
35 to 40 goals. Okay.
I do not think he's a 50-goal scorer. Last year, his bread and butter is supposed to be the power play. And last year, we've seen that once teams get tape on other teams' power play system, they work to close it down. And the main thing with Caulfield is he would stay on those boards, wait for that cross pass to come, one-timer on net. But that cross pass was never coming because they were waiting for it. So that's where Suzuki got his goals because of that, right? So I believe Caulfield, and listen, for the Habs fans that are going to say, I don't believe Caulfield played 82 games last year. I think he'll have more games where he plays 68 to 70 games than seasons he plays 82 games. Because
So you think he's going to be entering like loose leaf paper territory?
No, not loose leaf paper. Loose leaf paper is another player we're going to talk about. I feel he's going to he's going to play more 70 game seasons than 82 game seasons because of his size, because of the physicality of the NHL, even though it's changed from when we started watching the hockey. But the positive side with Caulfield is that I don't feel he's a one-dimensional player anymore. He is not just a goal scorer. He's shown last year that he can also distribute the puck, which will help him out and help his linemen out.
Well, he's a very young player, right? He's not even 24 yet. So all this is part of development, right? Junior?
Look, I agree. I agree that I don't foresee him being a 50 goal scorer. Look, can it be done over a season? Like, when you have one of those seasons where everything just goes the right way? Maybe, but I think to expect 35 is fair. To assume he should get to 40, I think is also fair. He's got a skill set that allows him to score a lot of goals. So we need him, or Montreal needs him to score a lot of goals. And the better the team gets, the more space he'll get as well. There's a caveat, and you mentioned it, the shoulder injury. I want to see the beginning of next season. because it's like knee injuries and shoulder injuries are similar in the sense that it always takes almost like a really long period of time before you're fully healthy, you get your mechanism back, and everything is as smooth as we expect it to be. So I want to see the beginning of this season. If he can show me the beginning of this season that he looks a lot smoother, because last year, I don't know if you guys remember the beginning of the season, he had a hard time stopping the puck on his stick and letting go a shot on the power play. He looked really rusty on the power play. But what worries me is that in the final quarter of the last season, which technically should have been like where his shoulder was the healthiest, right? Because he had a whole season anyhow, or not because he was hit. But yeah, you weren't giving me any like expression, so I was like, "Does he get what I'm saying?" Anyways, he only had 2 power play points in the last 21 games, so that's a little worrisome for me. I want to see where that goes. The addition of Linus should be fun, so he's not the only threat now with the shot. So I agree with Vince. 35 to 40 goals. And
okay, so
he's developed his passing as well. So I see why we put him in tier 3.
Okay, so we are a fantasy podcast. Obviously, we're concentrating on points more than anything else. So yes, I agree that 30 next year. I'm hoping to see 35 goals. I'm hoping to see 35 goals, and I think it's going to be very disappointing if he doesn't get there.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page.
I think if he doesn't get to 35 goals next year, it's very disappointing.
We need to expect 35 goals from
playing 82 games.
Playing 82 games, of course.
On
yes,
pace.
yes.
On pace, yeah.
You know, so I'm not saying that Caulfield's a bust in any way, right? The guy had 314 shots last year. We're talking about one of the people that is elite in quantity of shots that he takes. And that's going to be a big bonus if your league counts shots. Mm-hmm. Right? Like LPHL, we count shots. So
I thought you were
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, speaking of shots, he had his lowest shooting percentage in his career. 8.9 shooting percentage. That's really, really low for a goal scorer like that. So even if we average it out to 12, and that could go, and he scored 28.
That's where I think the recovery of the injury comes in.
Okay.
Right? Like 9% compared to his average, or the year before he had 16, and the year before that he had 12, right? So I feel that's where you really saw the injury kind of play a factor in that shooting percentage. Now, I always looked at him as a DeBrincat type. Shoot first mentality, constantly in the mix as the primary shooter on the line. It's interesting now that he's added a few more elements to that.
Yeah, because I found DeBrincat was a little bit more complete in terms of his offensive game, whereas Caulfield now seems to be developing that, like you said.
Yeah, he's not there yet. He's not at the DeBrincat yet. So we'll see. I mean, 5'8", like Vince said, and I know that you don't think it's important, but injuries do play a role sometimes when you're getting hit by bigger players constantly, and you're targeted by bigger players constantly, right?
The X factor for Caulfield might be, and we'll get to him soon, Patrick Laine. Now, if he can take a bit of that load off Caulfield of being that goal scorer that we need, it might help him just feel a little looser, you know?
Well, you mentioned Laine, so let's segue into Laine. We have him in our tier 4. So, again, Habs fans, I'm sorry, we have him between 60 to 69 points for this year. Let's not forget the player, although he is uber talented, and not just a shooting threat, although his shot is absolutely amazing from distance and from close. He is somebody that hasn't produced in a few years, and he hasn't played relevant hockey in a few years.
He hasn't played a lot of games.
He hasn't played a lot of games, right? So because of that, we are taking a more of a step back approach in the sense of we're projecting him 60 to 69 points. And I know Vince, last episode, I think you said 25 goals.
25
and
goals,
you'd be happy
25
with
assists, 50 points.
I'd love to see 30 personally. I don't know if it's going to happen though. I can't predict. It's so hard to predict somebody that hasn't. He played 18 games last year, 55 the year before that. I'm hoping 30, but
so this is my worry.
Why don't you start?
Okay, so this is my worry is that him and Caulfield play the same position on that power play. They play on that board, waiting for that lateral pass to come and that slap shot to come in. You're not going to see Laney on the blue line playing as the quarterback. You're not going to see him in front of the net. So now, what happens? Who gets cut off? So does this mean that now Caulfield would play a minute 30 seconds of a power play? So now does this mean Caulfield plays 45 seconds, Laney plays the other minute and 15, or Caulfield plays a minute, Laney plays the other minute, the second power play, Laney starts the power play, Caulfield. You understand? So this is my worry for.
I personally feel it would be a disservice not to have them both on at the same
Yeah.
time.
But where are you going to put them?
One on one side, one on the other. So the pass could go either way.
And Suzuki,
where's Suzuki?
Suzuki goes to the bumper, maybe.
Bumper or behind the net,
Yeah,
setting
but
them up.
But that's Doc's position behind the net.
No, I don't see Doc on the first power play.
I think 100%.
You're gonna have to choose. You're gonna have to choose.
Between Doc and Line will have to fight for the first playoff. The first playoff.
I would rather Doc
power play.
I would rather Doc than Liney on the first power play.
It depends what kind of system they decide to use.
I would not take Suzuki off of that right board. Never in your life
Listen,
do you
you
take him
have-
off of the right
You have to
board.
have different systems. You can't just stick to one because, like you said,
No,
people
but-
watch film.
And,
so you
and
need
don't
to
forget, it was also 27th ranked power play. There needs to be change.
No, 100%. Well, first thing you need Matheson, as much as we're going to talk about him after. We have no quarterback at the power play, and that bumper roll has to be examined to see who's going to play in that bumper roll. But to me, you don't put Suzuki in that bumper roll. You lose his whole IQ is useless in that bumper roll.
No, I think behind the net is exactly where he should be.
One thing I found the power play lacked was movement.
Yeah.
And I feel like Suzuki, oftentimes he got the puck because he would move around and then make his way. Remember, he goes out of the blue line and then he comes back in, gets that pass. And
When they were effective, you saw movement. You saw Suzuki going from behind the net to that wing spot. Then you saw Caulfield moving to the other side, sneaking in the back. You saw Matheson sometimes bringing it more in a little bit, right? So when they were successful, I find that's when they were at their most dangerous. The second that they became stagnant, you're exactly correct that they would just stop the passes to Caulfield, and that's it.
Yeah.
Power play over.
I just if we go into last year and we look at how Suzuki's go on the power play, they're one way and one way only. It's from that side boards where he has that perfect shot where he knows where to put it. But for Patrick Laine, listen, I think he needs. I don't 50 points because I don't think he should be surpassing Caulfield on the power play 1. I don't think he should be surpassing Caulfield on line 1. I think Laine is right now on this team should be a line 2 player, power play 2, maybe sometimes power play 1, if he gets hot. But it's gonna take him time to adapt to a new system. It's not. We've seen it all the time. Players go on new teams. We expect gold, and it's very hard for them to adapt to a new system. So with Laney, it's patience. Nick said it all of last episode he is 26 years old. Laney is still young, so we just have to be a little patient with him.
yeah, I agree. Like especially considering what he's coming off of, which is players' assistance program and mental health. I don't think you want to put him on line 1 and power play 1 and everything right off the bat. I think you want to kind of like ease him into this new culture, ease him into this new system, and like just relieve a bit of pressure from him now because the fans are going crazy. I mean, everyone's very excited to have him, but we have to understand that like behind the hockey player, there's a human being, and all that has to kind of like come together. And sometimes it happens in the snap of a finger, but not to everybody. And I think we just need to be realistic and say it could take him a little bit of time. And I agree. If we can get 25 goals, 25 assists from Patrick Laine this year, it's a really good start. And I wouldn't touch the top line because of how successful it was. Why break a chemistry that looked pretty good? When Demidov comes next year, then maybe you could tinker with it a little bit.
Look,
But I just want to give a few stats from Laine, or is that what you're
no,
getting?
go ahead.
Laine in the last 3 years was pacing for 74-point seasons, but never played more than like 56 games, right? So it's nice to pace for high amount of points, but you got to play those games. Hopefully that mental health, he gets by it and can stay healthy from that standpoint, but physically as well. He needs to either learn how to play to protect. I don't know. He's got some things that happen where he's going to learn how to play in his body or something, because right now it's not clicking. He's not putting it. He's putting himself in positions to keep getting injured, and I think you have to learn that. I think you have to learn that. Yeah.
Okay, that's all interesting. I'm hoping 30-30 this year. I think we have him ranked in the proper spot, tier 4, 60 to 69 points, 30 goals, 30 assists. I think he's coming in this year wanting to prove that he's more than a 30 goal scorer. I still think he hits 30 and 30. He said in the interview when he got hired by the Habs that the first interview that he did with the media, he was saying, I want 40. I'm not coming as a 30 goal scorer. I'm coming as a 40, 50 goal scorer. And he does have the talent to do that.
He says, I want to come back as.
Right. So I still think 30 and 30 is exactly where I'm going to have him ranked. When you don't forget that with the mental health issues, identifying that you do have an issue, identifying that you need the help, creating a outlet for people to actually go and get that help, which him and his fiance have done, and all of this is hoping that he has now reached the level of whether it's maturity, whether it's good place in his life, that all of this is now behind him and he could move forward as a productive, not only player, but human being, right, in life. So it's not easy. It's always a challenge, mental health, and it's something that stays with you and you have to fight it every day.
Every day.
But here's hoping that at least he has that part of his life figured out, and then the rest is all glory and caveat.
Caviar.
Okay, so
Doc.
you guys want to do a board bet? Or are we too close in predictions here for goals? Let's stick to goals.
Everything depends on how many games he plays.
25 plus, 30 plus,
If you want to
35.
do pace,
Pace?
No.
Look, if he plays 82 games, I'm more along what you said, right? The 60 points. If he plays 82 games, he should be at 60 points. All right, so let's skip the board bet because it's too many variables.
There's so many ways that this could go, right? And it all depends on his health. But who we're projecting him to land on? Oh, sorry. You mentioned to me before that you don't touch the first line. It's 82 games. 82 games is so long.
No, but to start.
They're
obviously
going to
it's
start
gonna
him
switch.
off on the second line with Dak. And then if Marty wants to throw things differently and wants to put Slavkovsky down with Doc and put Line up, or the other way around, put Caulfield. Like, there's so many ways that during a year that's 82 freaking games long, you're going to see all kinds of combinations.
Yeah.
All kinds of combinations.
And Doc and Slavkovsky actually had some chemistry, so.
Correct. And now, speaking about Doc, is he going to come back healthy?
See, he's the loose leaf paper
That you were mentioning before?
because he just doesn't make it through seasons. It's man, I don't know. Doc, I like Doc. I love his size.
I mean, for, like, talent-wise, we're talking...
He was third overall, if I'm not mistaken. That talent is there.
Yeah, maybe he shouldn't have gone third overall
No,
from Chicago, but at the same time,
The talent is there, but
the talent is there, and you kind of saw it, right? Like, I'm not talking about last year's 2 games, but the year before that, he had a 54-point pace, but didn't he look like he belonged? Like, he was making passes that I didn't even see.
The second half of that season was very impressive.
The playmaking ability,
he could dominate the game. The problem is, can he stay healthy to dominate enough games?
The sad part, though, is that it was such a stupid freak accident, his injury. Like, it was a hit where none of us expected him to have a torn ACL. You know what I mean? It was such an innocent, like, it looked like nothing. And then, I don't know.
I don't think that's something that it was repeatable necessarily, because it's one of those things where I don't think anybody would have expected to tear an ACL being written on the boards.
But I do believe that some people are just more susceptible to that kind of stuff. And he could be one of them. Maybe.
Maybe.
I'm not stating that as a fact.
Soft tissue injuries, I would agree with you. Ligaments is...
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but...
I don't know. Maybe.
He's a player that if he plays 82 games can hit...
It is a soft tissue injury.
Can hit tier 2. in the 80 plus points. He could be a point per game player. The problem is he hasn't stayed healthy, and he's 5 seasons. He hasn't stayed healthy. Most games he played was 70 games in Chicago.
And it was a horrible year for him.
Yeah, it was 26 points. So I don't want to compare him to. I feel he's like a Pierre-Luc Dubois, where he has all the assets.
No, don't say that.
No, but he has all the assets to dominate and to be this elite superstar centerman, and there's always something holding him back. Whether it's mental, whether it's physical. Doc, I feel it's more physical. He just can't stay healthy. So that's why I put him that's why I think in the 60 tier he's there. But even 60 point tier, if he plays 50 games, he ain't hitting 60 points.
Yeah, he has to stay healthy. And
If he doesn't stay healthy, I think this is gonna be a big bust for us. It's a big bust because we did pay to get him.
I believe it ended up being Frank Nazar. Because we traded Romanov and
The first.
our first two Islanders for their first.
Mm-hmm.
And we traded that pick for Doc, which that pick ended up being Frank Nazar.
Mm.
So we'll see. We'll see. But look, Doc was pacing for 82 points last year.
2 games, 2 points.
2 games, 2 points.
Look, fully.
You have to say it.
I just had to say it. Fully healthy, though, I expect him to easily be in the 60-point range. He showed when he was fully engaged and fully healthy that he could, like Vince said, take over a game. He got involved physically. He's the type of guy when he puts his head down, like you get scared seeing him coming at you as a defenseman. So
I like what they're building in Montreal with the size. You still have your Caulfields that don't have that size, but you're trying to surround that player with people with size. And I don't mind that at all.
And I think, again, the more they're adding slowly to this team, the more it alleviates a bit of pressure off everybody else. And I don't know if maybe Doc felt that a little bit after Suzuki. We didn't really have that number 2 center. Everyone just assumed that Suzuki is an ideal number 2 center. I think he's proved everybody wrong now. But look, if he could stay healthy, the addition of Newhook, Line A, and all that stuff all coming together, healthy, 25 goals, 40 assists, could happen. And he doesn't need power. He's not the type of player that needs power play 1 to get those points either.
I had traded 2 second-round picks to Vince for Kirby Dach.
Well, in a cap league, it's a nice contract.
Which is a nice contract, and that's why I did it. But he's played about 50 games for me in 2 years. So not sure if that's going to come out. And who did you take with those 2 second rounders? I don't know. Do you remember?
We traded you, Doc.
Yes, you did. Yes, you
in
did.
our inaugural season.
Yeah.
So we each had him. How cute.
Yeah, cute. Slavkovsky, another cute. Slavkovsky played 82 games last year, 20 goals, 30 assists. He had that rookie season that he was supposed to have before getting injured. In his actual rookie season, which was 2022-2023. 50 points in his sophomore season, which is great. And you kind of saw him really starting to get that confidence. You started seeing him on that first line with Suzuki, looking like he belonged on that first line, winning board battles. One thing that I will say before I throw it to you guys is that I don't know if you've seen his off-season videos. Mm-hmm. This guy trains like a monster. He wants to be a monster on the ice. And from year 1, where I don't know if you remember, but he was getting used to that smaller ice surface. He was getting used to the physicality of the NHL. He looked like a rag doll out there. People were hitting him. He was flying. He was going upside down cartwheels and everything. He did not look good in that first year. But last year, playing 82 games, winning board battles, people trying to hit him, he's not going down. He looked good.
Power forward.
He looked like a power forward, yeah. So Vince, since you're starting pretty much all of them, why don't you go with this one?
Slavkovsky will be the next 50 goal scorer for the Montreal Canadiens.
Whoa!
So remember when I started this episode?
Do we have a soundbite for a bold take? Hot take.
Yeah.
Remember when I started this episode saying we're not we're not those Hab fans from the internet.
So I'm not saying this year he's going to score 50 goals, but he will be the one who scores the next. Wow. He scores 50 goals for the Habs. His first year was very scary for a Habs fan as a number 1 overall pick and seeing him on the ice. putting himself in vulnerable positions, looking a bit like KK, like Bambi on the ice.
Bambi on skates.
His skates, you know. But then that second season came, and you saw that he took it personally that what was said about him in the first year. And this guy is a rookie, right? And sophomore, you always say that's the year that they take a step back. But he took a step forward, and he also played with better players than the first year he was there. So
not from the beginning.
No, that's why
he kind of earned that spot slowly, right?
He got most of his the last quarter of the season, if I'm not mistaken, was the hottest time he was. And that's when he was playing Caulfield Suzuki power play one time.
I just calculated, so I'll jump in to tell you. His second half of the season, he was on pace for 71 points.
So
second half of the season.
So I feel and like you said, the training, and all, if he comes out and if they give him that opportunity off the bat, I feel he's gonna be a very, very good. Easily could be in the 70 to 79 points. But I do feel that at one point he will be the next person to score 50 goals for the Habs.
I'm really enjoying watching Slafkovsky grow. I'm with Vince, not necessarily with the 50 goals, but I'm with him thinking this guy's going to be a really, really good player. I think he should be an 82-point player. I think he can be and should be and will be a point per game player when he enters his prime. He's just got all the tools. He's got a great shot. He gets involved physically. He's learning, like what I said with Laine earlier, where he has to learn to play with the body type he has. Slafkovsky is finally learning how to play with that body type in this league. It's easy to just say you have to bulk up. No, you have to bulk up, but you have to play a certain style. You have to put yourself in positions where you're not vulnerable all the time and maybe be the first to make contact instead of taking the contact. So Slafkovsky showed extreme strides of improvement. I'm curious to see how he uses that second half of the season where he was pacing 71 points and starts the new season. He also got injured. Was it last season or the season before? His rookie season. So maybe did that lead to a slow start as well? Who knows? But I'm really curious to see. Look, when everything is said and done, Montreal should have a long-term success in terms of making playoffs and contending.
Hopefully. If the rebuild goes well.
If it keeps going this way, they're trending in the right direction. And look,
they won't hit on every player, though.
We'll talk about them later. It's easy to trend in the next direction, and it's another to excel once you're there. And the Ottawa Senators are a perfect example of that.
Jesus, you had to just bring Ottawa into this, did you? Okay.
Slafkovsky is a point per game player, but not next year. I agree where we put him in the 60 to 69.
60 points, I think.
If he stays healthy, fair. I think he could be close to 69.
Guys, we have to talk about this. He was 19 years old last year. You're talking about the first teenager since Guy Lafleur to actually put up the amount of points that he put up, and that's impressive in its own right. Yeah. You know, 19 years old, but he looks like Gabe Landeskog out there. Hopefully,
if he could become
right. I mean, doesn't it give you a little bit that vibe? I don't know. Anyways, we'll see. It might be even better. Who knows? Wow! Remember when I said that we're not those half fans from the, and then we're like building up these players. But I think that's those are the players that.
But it's with merit. We're building them up, not for next year, right? Next year we're all pretty fair with next year.
Yeah, we're pretty fair.
But
I think
projecting what they're going to be. I think we're on the same page. It's not being homers. It's just based off what we've seen and their development.
Well, Kirby Dach being healthy is going to be a big reason why maybe Laine, maybe Slafkovsky, maybe that power play is going to start improving. Because I think that without Dach, you kind of have a hole still on the lineup. And as much as Newhook looked good in spurts last year, we don't even have him on our 60 to 69 points because we don't think he's going to reach there. And
I think he could get close.
I mean, if Dach is injured all year, I think he could get close. But it just feels that second line isn't complete without Dach there. And a healthy Newhook and healthy Dach, a healthy Laine. That's a lot of ifs for a team that, you know, has been injury prone. The entire team has been injury prone.
And that's
So-
why you mentioned you have to be realistic. It's easy to say everyone's going to be great, but when you have so many ifs and questions, you have to take that into account when you're doing projections.
A big surprise was exactly who we said is quarterbacking the top power play for now, temporarily, and that's Mike Matheson. So Mike Matheson is another one of these loose leaf papers during his career. But last year he came in and played 82 games for the first time ever. So he played a full 82 games schedule. He got 62 points. We have him in our tier 4 between 60 to 69 to repeat again this year. And I think a big reason for that is because we don't see necessarily him losing that PP1 spot this year.
Exactly.
So as long as he has that PP1 this year, he should kind of go back into that 60-point range.
Or even the first pairing defense. I don't see him losing that.
No, definitely not this year.
So, I mean, he showed last year that defensively he could be a liability sometimes. But he showed he can play. I mean, there was some highlight goals he had, some of those rushes from his end all the way and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like, listen, people who think that Lane Hudson is going to come here and overthrow Matheson as number 1 PP guy is you're just dreaming. You're dreaming in colors. And listen, you thought Slavkovsky 50 goals was a bold statement, man. Lane Hudson to the AHL this year. That's what has to happen. He shouldn't be touching the NHL, Lane Hudson. That's what I say. But Matheson, like I said, there's no reason not to think he could redo it. And if we think the power play is going to get better, then there's definitely no reason that he shouldn't be hitting 60 goals again. But
Junior?
not 60 goals, sorry, 60 points.
Yeah, I understood. The listener is probably somebody's gonna attack you. You know,
If I went on board to say that Evan Bouchard doubling his goals and doubling his points in a season was unrealistic to expect that again, for him to hit the same pace, I'm not going to be here and say that I expect Matheson to sustain something he doubled from his career. His last year, he had 34 points in 48 games. He was pacing for 58. Okay, he was pacing for 58. Yeah, I didn't realize he didn't play 82 games.
Ooh, Junior.
But no, I see it dropping a little bit. I see him more in the 50s than in the 60s, because I do expect, even if it's not to start the season, there's a good chance Hudson could be in the AHL to start the season. But it doesn't mean he's not going to be in the NHL at some point later. And if he comes to the NHL, Lane Hudson, because the Canadiens are going to be losing a lot of games in the third period, it's going to be Lane Hudson that's going to be on the ice. It's not going to be Matheson if Lane Hudson's with that team. If you need a goal, it's Lane Hudson. You're not bringing Lane Hudson up and not putting him when you need a goal.
It's a lot of pressure to put while you're fighting for a playoff spot. If that's what
exactly.
That's
the
why you
Habs
don't bring
actually
Lane-
think they're going
Lane
to do.
The
Hudson
start of the season will determine a lot, because if he does make the team, he can't make the team and not have that opportunity.
Oh yeah, for sure, I understand. But here's the fear.
But I do expect Matheson, even with Lane Hudson there, to flirt in the 50s, because he will get more ice time.
Great salary for a 50-point.
Yes.
defenseman,
In
by the
cap leagues, Matheson is a great look. 25 minutes though is a lot. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll throw it back to you, Nick. It was clear as day that Martin Saint-Louis gave him the green light to push forward.
way. Oh yeah.
So he was free to play,
Well,
and that showed, and it looked good. It
One
looked really
big
good.
thing that I noticed, and Marty said this as well in one of the interviews, is that, guys, we're doing the drop-off pass, right? Which I hate the drop-off pass.
hate
I
it.
hate it. It always gets picked off on top of it because everybody knows that you're doing it. But they're doing the drop-off pass, and then at one point you see Matheson kind of look back, see the guy is cheating to the drop-off pass. So he says, okay. So he cuts through 2 defenders and just goes and scores a goal. And goes forward instead of dropping it off. And that's kind of what, Marty expects players to think on their feet.
Yeah.
And it's cool because I don't think you've ever heard anything like that in Montreal before. Because in Montreal, it was always the
Safe.
Claude Julien, which is like, okay, play back. Don't take too many risks. Don't try this. Why are you doing this? It's not part of the plan. It's nice to kind of have that breath of fresh air, and I think Matheson has really taken advantage of that, which is nice to see. Lane Hudson is another player that could take advantage of it. I just don't want the Montreal Canadiens to bring him in, and he gets because okay, guys, he played 2 games in the NHL. He had one nice back check. He was also the cause of a goal because he didn't pick up his man in one shift, and people somehow seem to forget that. He's gonna make his mistakes, and I don't want him to come in and say that he's just gonna be a power play specialist because then really you're not. Who did you get? Lane Gostisbehere? Like he's gonna be on the team for a couple of years as a power play specialist. I don't want that. I want the guy to be on the team for a long period of time, and that's why I think I agree with Vince. He's better served learning in the AHL, and I know we're all excited. We're all excited to see him in the NHL. I just don't think this is the year for that necessarily.
Listen, I've been a preacher of this. I for his development, he's better off in the AHL. Step by step. Logan Mailloux went to the AHL last year, finished top, I think, second with most points by a defenseman. I mean, I think he's earned his spot to try to make this top 6 before Lane Hudson did, just because of what Lane Hudson did in college. College is not the NHL, it's not the AHL. The AHL, he needs the AHL.
He has the talent to make people miss, David Perron look stupid on the ice. He has the talent.
I do not. I am not saying that Lane Hudson is not an NHL defenseman. I don't think he's a number 1 NHL defenseman, but he could be a second pairing defenseman with offensive talent. But he needs to develop into that, and that's why you can't throw him to the wolves in the NHL.
Look, you mentioned his mistake. Mike Matheson was a -24. He made a shitload of mistakes, pardon my language. So, like, we can't... If someone's going to be as offensive as Lane Hudson, you live with his mistakes. You just live with that. Now, do I think he starts the season in the AHL? Most likely. But he's going to determine that. There's players that... Slafkovsky hasn't seen a game in the AHL. There's players that develop better in the NHL, and there's players that develop better in the NHL. The player and the staff and the development team is going to determine whether Hudson needs the AHL or the NHL. But there's players that could easily develop in the NHL and not in the AHL.
But you just compared a number 1 overall pick to a number 16th, 17th pick that Hudson was. 10th?
No, second round, 30,
second round pick.
36.
It's non-comparable. You can't compare Slafkovsky not going to the
Slafkovsky
AHL.
looked like an NHL player in his first year.
But he was a first rounder.
Would you have put him in the AHL?
100%. But
So
he's
then-
also 6'3".
But he doesn't play 6'3",
But
just
now-
like KK
but
never
now he
played
does.
6'1", 6'2".
Hudson can't play 6'3".
He'll never play
Exactly.
6'3". So then he's not an
making
NHL player to you then.
No, I never. You see, this is you putting words into people's
Wow.
mouth. I see.
You're expecting him to play 6'3".
No, I'm not expecting. You compare Slafkovsky to Hudson and saying, well, they didn't put Slafkovsky
In terms of development.
It's a different development. He needs to learn how to play 5'9" in the NHL.
Did Caulfield play a full season in the AHL?
Okay, stop. So,
Caulfield didn't play a full season in the AHL.
Did I say a full season? I think he should play a full season because I think Logan Mailloux should be playing a full season in the NHL because he proved himself in the AHL.
He could. Who's saying it has to
There's
be
no
Hudson or
space.
Mailloux? They're not done, guys. They're not done. The Habs are not done moving.
There is.
what do you mean?
They have too many bodies.
there
They've
is-
got Struble.
Who are you taking out?
They just signed
I don't think
Xhaka.
Struble is a starter necessarily in the NHL right now.
Well, he was last year.
No, he was.
He
because
might
of
be a
injury
7
last year.
defenseman.
He was injured. There was injuries last year, which is why Struble had a chance.
It'll be interesting to see what training camp will what
Yeah,
happens in
training camp is going to be very interesting. Exactly. I don't mind. I'm still very excited to see Hudson, and the reason I mentioned Hudson is because he's the only other person that I could see on the power play. Barron had some time on the power play. Yeah. You know, he has a very good shot, Barron. I just don't think he has the vision that a Lane Hudson has, or even a Matheson might have.
He lacks a bit of that hockey IQ.
He lacks a little bit of that IQ, that just seeing the openings, right? The other person was Jacky. Jacky had a great shot on the power play as well.
They tried a few times, but
hey, he scored goals.
Yeah.
He scored goals on the power play last year, and they tried him a few times as well. So that second power play spot is wide open right now, but Lane Hudson, if he does play in the NHL, seems to be the guy that's going to be in there. Logan Mailloux, if he's playing in the NHL, will probably be the other guy that's going to be in there. So we're going to see who It is right now they have Goulet playing on the off wing.
I was gonna say, so Gouli, no power play time.
Well,
Not
Goulet's
likely.
playing right now with Matheson, according to how
Daily face off.
it's not only the daily faceoff though. He did it last year as well. He's playing. Goulet's a left-handed, but he's playing right,
It's because he's the only guy who can do that. That's left-handed.
and it's because they don't want to put David Savard and Matheson together. They want to put David Savard with a rookie to try to protect that rookie. So if Lane Hudson does make it, he's probably going to be playing with David Savard.
And like Matheson finished 9th in scoring in defenseman. I don't see that happening next year again. Like Junior was saying, it's gonna other defensemen will have more points than him, but I don't see anybody competing for his PP1 right now.
So we have nobody else in the 60 to 69 point range for this team. Do you guys have anybody that you want to say could probably sneak in there? Like a dark horse candidate to hit 60 points this year?
Lane Hudson. No, just kidding.
No, I think the only
I'm curious to
realistic
see
person might be Newhook.
New Hook or
He
I-
hit that 50 already. Maybe he's
This year, I'm curious to see Joshua.
yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
I'm
Joshua
curious to see Joshua because I feel Newhook right now is a give me on that second line, but I wouldn't be surprised if they throw in Joshua on that second line once in a while
Okay,
and see what he can do.
so let's move on to the goalie tandem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is an interesting goalie tandem because
It's not 3.
it's not 3 this year.
Yeah, as far as we know.
Because 3 last year was an absolute disaster. And somehow Detroit is trying to do 4 this year.
5. No Jack Campbell too.
Jack Campbell, I forgot about that one.
So Talbot, Leon,
So
Kosa.
Sam Montembeault last year had a 903 save percentage, a goals against average of 3.14. Goal save above expected on 5-on-5 was 19th in the league, which is actually very good because we're comparing it to 32 goalies times 2, 64 players in total. So finishing 19th is actually
Not bad on a team that
not
wasn't
bad
very good.
on a team that was 5th worst in the league. Caden Primo was the other goalie, and he went on a 910 save percentage, 299 goals against average. Those stats are better than Montembeault's. And goal save above expected on 5-on-5, 29th. So right in the middle of the pack of all of those goalies, including backups and starters. What do we see out of this goalie tandem? Are we repeating the same? Are we in the sense of same stats? Are we thinking there's going to be a few more wins? What's the idea? And I'll start with Junior this time because I started with Vince like 7 times in a row here.
Well, look, Montembeault had 28 quality starts out of 41, and Primo had 11 out of 23. So it's kind of 50-50 in that sense. I kind of like this tandem as a bridge to Fowler. Because at the end of the day, Fowler is going to be the number 1 goalie of this team. Still a few years away. But it's a nice bridge in between then. And
3
next,
to 4 in my opinion.
Yeah. For a full-time position.
For a full-time position in the NHL, yeah.
I think Montembeault, I think the Canadiens want to see a bit of progress, so they need more wins. They want to see more wins. They want to compete for a playoff spot. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Kent Hughes on, not the Sick podcast, but Tony Marinau now is on the French radio station.
Yes.
And he had an interview with Kent Hughes, and Kent Hughes said their objective is to be in the mix for a playoff spot. So that should tell you a lot, and it might dictate where some of these young guys play, whether it's AHL or NHL. Anyhow, that being said, Montembeault, I expect him to hit at least 20 wins this year. I think it's a disappointment if he's healthy, if he doesn't hit 20 wins, and I expect 10 from Primo, with hopefully under 3 goals against average.
So you're saying we're going to finish bottom 5 again next year? Because last year we finished 30 wins, 36 losses.
But Montembeault 20 to 25, but I didn't want to give an exact amount there.
You said 20. I don't know.
It depends because I don't know.
Look,
mediocre numbers. Look, it's average. They're not going to be stellar goalies, and I think if you go 0G strategy, Montembeault is a good option.
Montembeault will get 60% of the starts, even 70 maybe, 65% of the starts. Yeah,
really?
yeah.
You have no faith in Primo.
It's
He
not
had
that-
better stats.
It's not that I have no faith in Primo. I don't think the club has any faith in Primo. So I believe, and especially if Kent Hughes is in the hemisphere of competing for a playoff spot, you're going with Montreal. You're not going with Primo. I feel Montreal's goals against average is going to lower because Montreal will be scoring more goals, hopefully, with the players they got. And if they stay healthy.
Goals against average is not about
Yes,
us
I know,
scoring
but
goals.
if you score more goals, then you play more defensive. If Montreal has been playing
I could give your goalie a bit of confidence too.
didn't play many games in the lead. Montreal lost a lot of 1-goal games last year.
A lot.
So I think that's where the shift is going to be for them to even attempt to be playoff contenders, is turning those losses into wins. So I don't mind Montreal. I think he's proven himself that he could play in the NHL. He can be a solid number one goalie. Defensively, I still have a lot of questions about Montreal.
Sorry, before you make your take, one thing I forgot to mention, which is very important and changes my projection in wins. They're not playing 3 goalies like we said before. So they get more starts, both of them. And with that, then Montreal should be closer to 25 wins and Primo closer to 15. Even if they do like a 50-32, which is kind of 60-40. Yeah, I mean, 25 and 15, nice 40 wins. It's a good improvement.
What's your perspective, Nick, on these goaltenders?
Great cap hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're looking at today's NHL, and you're saying to yourself, "Oh, you could win with pretty much anybody, any goalie, right?" Aiden Hill freaking won. Skinner almost won, right? So Georgiev won.
If you ain't first, you
Georgiev-
last.
Georgiev won a bunch of games. He didn't win at all, but right?
Kemper won.
It was Kemper, that year, exactly. So again, though, we're talking about you don't need to overpay goalies unless you have a Carey Price, unless you have one of these superstar goalies that could steal games from you every single time. And Montreal stole a couple of games. Like his goal save above expected was still there at 19th, but his cap hit is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think that's just my take on it. Both these goalies are going to be
Good Chinu.
closer to maybe like Caden Primo. One thing I'll say about Caden Primo is that at one point he was the heir apparent, and then at another point, maybe he can't play in the NHL, and then all of a sudden now he seems to have settled a little bit.
There's an
So
in-between.
we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun to see him play more games this year.
Yeah. I feel last year, with the system they went with, Montreal, every goalie lost out on that system.
Yes.
On that
Yeah.
3-goalie system, I think every goalie lost out on that.
I think we underestimate how much of a difficult situation that is for a goalie.
Top prospects.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, we finally have a superstar. Hopefully. Because he hasn't played an NHL game yet, but
And his name is not Lane Hudson.
he did make the SKA opening night
AHL.
Yeah,
roster.
so he won't be with
in
the Habs, ladies and
KHL.
gentlemen. He will
He
not
won't-
be with the Habs this
He
year.
won't be with the Habs this year. There were some rumors flying around that maybe we could buy out his contract. Blah, blah, blah. Forget that.
Wishful thinking at best.
Still, so far, the Habs Twitter has exploded with every single game Demidov has played.
Every single time he touched the puck.
He drank water, guys. People just losing their minds, which is fun.
It's fun. We
It's
haven't
fun.
had this in how long, guys?
We
Come on.
haven't had a potential superstar in so long.
Let-
I think
let
PK
people
Subban was the
rejoice.
last guy. PK Subban was the last guy I remember that brought people out of their seats during his prime when he was skating end to end with a puck and playing and hip checking Marchand into the boards. He wasn't a forward.
No, but it wasn't his draft year. Like PK Subban, we realized he was a superstar once he started playing.
Oh man, can you imagine PK Subban with
the
Marty
Habs,
St. Louis as a coach instead of?
But Demidov
Terrien.
is like Demidov's just drafting him. It was like
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
who's a talent?
the reaction video is online if any of you wants to see it. That's probably our most watched video, by the way. Demidov did, in fact, it is the most talented player that I think we've had since, even if we're talking forwards, since Kovalev, easily.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're going to have him in his prime. We had Kovalev at the end of his career,
Yeah.
right? So this is going to be a huge, huge player for us. So we have Demidov. He's not coming this year. He's probably going to come next year. And he's looking
Fingers
forward to-
crossed.
He's already started learning French, by the way, on his own, thanks to Andrei Markov's suggestion to him. So it's interesting news. Lane Hudson is the other player that we have as our top prospect. And Lane Hudson, I think Pronman had him as our fifth best prospect because he sees him more as a second pairing defenseman, more of that power play specialist type guy.
Sure, it's not Vince DiBiase who said that.
Very similar to Vince DiBiase's take, yeah.
You could be a second pairing defenseman and still put up first pairing numbers.
So you could tell that
Junior's got a crush on this
it's not only
player.
Junior, he drafted him in Lama, so he's an owner of the player, right? He owns shares.
He's
of
got
the
a
player.
skill set that if he doesn't put up points, he can't be effective.
No, he has to put up
So,
points.
but
I
there you
agree
go.
with you. He has to put up points. We'll just see what.
It's just second pairing sounds like we're degrading him a little bit.
You go, Nick. Keep on going, Nick. Just don't listen to him. Just
By the
keep
way,
on going.
if my neighbor who spoke to me about Lane Hudson also believes with Junior that he's a number one defenseman.
Oh, whoa.
Future number one.
Pairing. Number
Future
one
number one
pairing.
defenseman.
Number one pairing. Not a number one defenseman. There's two different things. Don't drive hate towards me. I've had enough of that crap.
Ryan Backer is our other big prospect, and a lot of people were saying that Ryan Backer is only a defensive defenseman. They don't see a lot of offense from him. The Habs actually believe that he has more offense to give, and that's why they drafted him that way and drafted him that high. We'll see how Ryan Backer turns out, but he's going to be fighting this training camp for a spot. I don't know if he's going to play the whole year in AHL instead in Laval, but if it's not Laval, it's going to be the Habs.
Injuries are going to happen. The problem...
He'll see NHL time for sure this year.
The shit part about Ryan Backer is where the Habs drafted him, which is 5th overall. Because unfortunately, we're talking about all these defensemen that have offensive capabilities. Well, we can only have so many defensemen getting points and being on the first power play. So, as much as offensive capability as Ryan Backer has, he's not going to get 60 points without getting power play 1. You understand? So I feel where the Habs drafted him, he's gonna be a solid defenseman for us. Like,
I think he's going to be a first pairing defenseman for sure.
Yes, paired with someone who has a bit more offense in his game,
Like?
Logan
We'll
Mailloux.
No, Ryan Backer and Mayu are both righties, so they're not going to be on the same.
He just didn't want to say Lane Hudson. I'll just mention, I mentioned them before. It was Fowler. I think Fowler's a big time prospect for this team. And I'll say that.
Did he just hijack my team? Or?
Oh, yeah, I think he just...
No, because we're talking about prospects. So I was going after
he
Vince.
was
It's my
going
turn
one by
after
one.
Vince. Didn't they tell us not to do this on air? Anyhow, no, I think Hage could be what we all expect Doc to be.
Oh yeah,
I see Hage becoming what we expect Doc to be.
if Doc continues his injury, which knock on wood, let's hope he doesn't, right? Because I paid a lot for him. But if Doc continues his injury-prone ways, then you're starting to look at maybe a Hage, maybe a Beck, maybe New Hook being that second line center, or whoever we draft next year, because you don't know, right? Hage definitely has the talent to be a second line center if he hits, if he develops properly moving up. You mentioned Fowler already. We're still talking about 3-4 years away, I think, for Fowler.
Yeah.
But he looks like the heir apparent, and maybe part of the reason that they didn't offer too much for Askarov.
A question we will ask next episode.
We'll see. They also have Oliver Kapanen, who looks like a solid player.
Yeah.
NHL player.
Bottom 6, yeah.
And you mentioned Roy might play in the top 6 this year.
He's my... he's the one I'll be looking for this year. Really, I'm really interested to see what he can do. Every time he's been put in a position to succeed, he succeeds. So I think this is as long as he stays healthy, I'm very curious to see what Joshua Roy can give this team.
And although Fowler seems to be the heir apparent right now, a lot of people are forgetting that Dobish is still in the system, and Dobish had a stellar AHL season last year. Let's not forget that Dobish still has the ability to become a number one goalie in this league if he continues in this progression.
It's nice to be really excited about Fowler, but let's not rush him into the league like
still years
Buffalo
away.
tried to do with Levi.
Yeah.
and now are sending back and making him develop and taking his time.
Guys, last thing. We're already an hour in the episode.
Bam!
That's the Habs. We're
Bam! Bam!
Do you guys
ouch.
have anything else to add on the Habs before I close out the final thoughts?
They're gonna win the cup. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Do they have a number one defenseman?
No, they do not.
No, definitely not. And I think they're gonna.
Any
still-
final thoughts?
Yeah, they're gonna end up in the bottom 6 of the NHL standings again.
Really?
Yeah.
I think they're going to marginally improve, and a big reason for that is because of the 1-goal games, the amount of 1-goal games that they lost last year. I think they win maybe half of those this time, and I still think they're going to be bottom 10 in the league.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but it's going to be fun to see if certain things hit, if people stay healthy, what this team could actually look like a little bit later.
I think they're gonna be in the mix for a playoff spot, but they won't have enough juice at the end to make that push, and they're gonna drop.
So Dom's model ranked their offseason as the 15th best offseason, which is slightly above dead center. But that didn't count the offseason trade of Line because his article had come out before the Line trade, so maybe it would have skewed things a little bit. I don't know how high he was on Line. The season is dependent on the health of these players. I think that is a mic drop on the Habs. If they stay healthy, maybe Junior's take is right. What are the chances of all of them staying healthy? I think that's where we're coming in as bottom 10 in the league.
And
I
other
mean,
teams.
history shows you can't project that they're gonna stay healthy, right? So
You can't predict
And-
that necessarily,
And
right?
other teams in their division got better, which we'll talk about.